I'm Nicholas Stratz. I'm the lead developer on Moviehouse.
So Nick, tell us about what this game's all about, Moviehouse. It's a movie production management sim, almost like a business sim.
Yeah, so the game starts off in the 1980s when you are in a little trailer in the desert. And you start off by making your first, small short film. And once you do that, you have to enter festivals and you have to find an audience for it. And then you grow that into a big major studio, and there's obviously stuff like making sequels and making prequels that you unlock eventually. So there's this constant progression with the game.
Now, so players understand, like, this isn't like a tycoon game. It's not like those games where you like make a movie and then watch it happen in like little pre-animated cutscenes. It's numbers and a sim game first. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect?
Yeah, so it definitely has a lot of numbers, but we've also tried to put a happy face on those. So you have the designer for your scripts, for example, where you set up your script with you have a bunch of prompts, for example, who's going to be the hero of this story, who's going to be the villain, what's the setting. So you get like very interesting things that people come up with, like, for example, it's a romantic movie about a ship, and the hero is a owner, and the villain is a T-Rex. So that was actually one of the ideas that someone came up with. So people have a lot of fun with that. So it's not just numbers. There's a lot of creativity that people can put into it.
You talk about some of the parody aspects of your game, like you said, like, because I feel a lot of modern, especially modern AAA blockbuster filmmaking, I feel like it's written by an algorithm in a computer workshop rather than a real person. That T-Rex thing sounds like something that would actually happen in Hollywood and get produced and cost hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, definitely. And the game, we try to simulate all sorts of aspects of the film industry. There's different audience types that you can appeal to. For example, some people like very sophisticated movies, and some people like those movies that do have T-Rexes in them. So you can definitely specialize your movie studio in all sorts of directions.
How much would this game improve upon you if you are a real life producer? Like, would this game actually help you improve like your movie making skills from a producer standpoint?
I would hope so. Yeah, the game does have a lot of trivia aspects to it as well. So you do have to know the industry. You have to have a sense of all these different things that go into making a movie. So I'd say if you are a very specialized filmmaker, like if you are a director or if you are a cameraman, then you can learn about other aspects of the movie industry through trivia questions, through just seeing how movies are made in the game.
Like there's a lot of people who make films all over the world, but like I think the US kind of has like the blockbuster, multiplex, worldwide distribution down. Was it difficult, since you're overseas, like designing a game that mimics the US Hollywood system? How much research did you have to do to make sure everything was correct, or at least parodying the correct things and all that stuff?
I think the culture that that comes over here from the USA is it's I think most people have an idea of what's happening in Hollywood. So there was definitely research. I actually recently went to the Cannes Film Festival, partly to do research as well, which was, sort of eye-opening. Never saw myself visiting Cannes before this. But there was definitely a lot of thinking about, that what goes into making movies, what goes into making movie posters, for example, as well. That we do have an in-depth editor for those. So definitely a lot of research, yeah.
Can you talk about what's the most ridiculous thing you've seen in your game be made and greenlit and made money via your business sim?
I would say, the T-Rex thing is definitely up there. It's you just get these insane prompts, and you can always make money. It's definitely, like, as I mentioned, the audience types. There will always be people who are into those kinds of movies. So you're probably not going to make the most amount of money making those types of films, but there's definitely money to be made as
Now, how many how many different art assets do you have in this game? And do you have like parody people like, Beyonce or like Adam Sandler? Do you have those types of people in this game just as represented as like little like emojis or anything like that?
I do hope Beyonce gives me a call after this, but unfortunately, no. But we can, of course, do things like we do have props in the game because, we try to model all sorts of things that go into movies, and props is one of those big ones, right? Everyone knows, the famous horror movie masks, for example. So we do try to kind of reflect the real life, for example, Jason mask in the game. So, stuff like that. There are hints of those. But currently not in copyrighted, but just kind of celebrating the culture of filmmaking, showing different props and things like that.
Yeah, the world of IP is getting more and more convoluted by the day. But like you mentioned, Jason originally wore just a regular hockey mask. You can't copyright a regular hockey mask. Maybe Jason's specific mask, but a regular hockey mask, that's fair game. Speaking to that, did you have any issues securing the rights to certain things in your game visually without, getting through CERT or getting approval, or people saying maybe that hockey mask is too close to Jason's, you have to change it?
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things you have to think about. You're right, a hockey mask is probably safe to use, but it's always like in the back of your mind. But we have been getting some interest from actual movie studios, so hopefully that's one of the things we can incorporate in the game at some point. Things like real life props and real life actors would be really cool to have in the game, I think.
Yeah, that leads into my next question. What does the future hold for Moviehouse? Like in terms of, you mentioned IP, like wouldn't it be great to get maybe like you start this game in the 80s, get a Back to the Future DLC pack where you get the music and the actors and some of the sets and the poster? Would stuff like that be open on the table down the line?
Yeah, I would definitely love to do something like that, and just to go a bit more into in depth on our future plans. We do want to move the start date back a bit to maybe include the 60s, 70s, and maybe something more after that. So yeah, so movies from those time periods as well would be quite cool to have.
I feel like I know the answer to the question, but I'm going to ask anyway. Why did you start in the 80s?
It's just such a big moment for the movie industry. Some quite memorable movies came out in the 80s, and it just felt like a good place to start.
Yeah, there was so much intellectual property created in the 80s. Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, even Star Wars was late 70s, but still, Star Wars, it was a really great time in filmmaking, like you said. And with Stranger Things coming out, there's been a resurgence for 80s film techniques, 80s style, and even 80s period pieces. Does that factor into your movies as well, like the stylistic of the 80s and the 90s and the modern filmmaking?
Yeah, it does. We actually have, so one of the big challenges was, how do you create a living world inside, how do you represent the other movie studios who are competing against you in game? And one of the things we came up with was making a procedural movie poster generator where it tries to recreate movie posters of the time period. So you do have movie posters of that look like from the 80s. Of course, they are stylized, and it's not a one-to-one copy, but that was another big thing that we had to research when making the game. What were the movie posters back then, and how do they look now? So they do progress through the game as well.
Nick, do you have any filmmaking experience as your background, or are you solely a game developer?
Let's say I've dabbled with film back in the day, but yeah, it's mostly as a programmer. But as I mentioned, starting developing the Moviehouse really opened up my kind of horizons. Meeting people in the actual film industry and just getting feedback from them has been very valuable to me.
No, it is difficult, and there are some the series that PlayStation does. Those are movies. They are literal movies where you kind of have a little bit of interaction. But it's funny how people in that experience can take their creativity and shift it over to game development, especially if you're, like you said, if you're a film junkie or a film buff or a cinephile, I guess is what they call them out here. What did that experience bring with you when you were developing Moviehouse? How did that help you, just having prior knowledge about the film industry in general?
I mean, it's definitely like cut down on the research time, and just knowing about those kinds of games where the player has their creative input, like that really opens up. I think gaming is definitely the place to do it, and I do hope that people who play Moviehouse, they will have a great creative outlet for their imagination.
So this is your studio's first game, if I'm correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this your studio's first game?
Yes.
That's awesome. So what has that been like with you and your team, and how big is your team for this being your first big game you're releasing?
So the team is quite small. We are 2 full-time developers, and we do have people helping out as well. So other people. But it has been quite a interesting journey, definitely, and just going. We've been developing Moviehouse for 2 years now, and just seeing where we were, 2 years ago with the first prototypes, and just finally, reaching this stage where the game is finally going to be coming out, is quite satisfying, I would say.
And speaking to that, when do you have a solid release date for your game, and what platforms will it be at launch?
So fall 2022, so this year.
Do you have any
Looking
plans?
forward to it.
Do you have any plans for console, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStation 5, 4?
That's on the table, sure. Yeah. I would love to have the game everywhere. Wherever there's a player, I would love to have the game.
I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you your favorite movie while I have you here. Do you have like a favorite cinematic film that you enjoy watching or have a soft spot for?
Yeah, I think it's always a hard question, like picking a favorite. I'll give you 3 because I'm feeling generous. Stand By Me would be a big one for me. Evil Dead 2 and Schindler's List. I think that's my top 3. Not in no particular order, mind you, but
those are all really good films, really good, powerful films.
Yeah,
those are good films. So man, so talk about where people can go to support Moviehouse and find more information, updates and stuff. You have a Discord, Twitter, website.
Yeah, definitely catch up on Discord, and we're going to be in Steam Next Fest as well, where we're going to have a demo available to play. So definitely check that out as well. So
awesome. And you'll be releasing fall this year, so relatively soon. We're going to get through summer and then we'll be in fall.
Yeah. So definitely looking forward to that.
That's awesome, Nick. Thank you so much for your time. Check out Moviehouse, coming out fall 2022.